for taking some time out. Like, I thought what I really wanted to do was just have a little chat with the holidays coming up. I know,
Oh, good idea.
and yeah, I work with a lot of parents. I work with some adult children, but I work with a lot of parents of adult children who have estrangement in their relationships, and they
Oh, okay.
they kind of freak out, right, over the
Yeah.
holidays. And I know
Yeah.
you do too, right? We're
Yeah. I
both
have lots of
certified
clients that
family
are,
estrangement coaches. This is Karen
right.
Stockham. I'm Bonnie Scott. And we just want to have a little, conversation about the holidays and maybe
Yeah.
hopefully give you some tips on how to navigate through the holidays while you're experiencing estrangement. So, hey, thanks for being here.
Yeah. You're welcome. Thanks for inviting me. It's a good idea with the holidays coming up, and
Right?
families experience a lot of disconnection and a lot of I'm not sure what to do during the holidays, right?
Yeah.
Because all those feelings come up.
Yeah. So, hey, before we get too far into this, one thing that I have found kind of over and over is what is estrangement? I have parents come to me all the time and they'll say, "Oh, I'm not really estranged." There's a lot of confusion about that word.
I think the connotation's pretty harsh, right? Estrangement seems to be where we're disconnected to the point we don't speak to each other ever, and it's just over, right? That's just
Oh, like
it's
we
a
both
sharp
walked our own
cut.
ways, both of us.
Right.
Done.
Yeah. I
Hmm.
think that's the perception, or at least what I see in my family practice. But I don't think that's necessarily true. I think there's levels of disconnection. What do you think?
So sometimes parents will say, "I feel like my adult child is pulling away," and I'll say, "Well, are
Right.
they? Do you feel cut off? I mean, have they cut you off?" They say, "No, but I can just feel there's distance," and that is a form of estrangement.
I think that I don't think the word is known as that right now.
Mm, hmm. Yeah.
Estrangement is a process. Could we say it's a process? It's a process of distancing, and then maybe there's a cutoff at
Mm.
the end. But it seems more like a process and a disconnection, and you could use different words to describe what estrangement is.
What I'm hearing is there is an emotional estrangement long before there's ever a physical estrangement.
Think about that.
Emotionally, we may be
Yeah,
creating distance where we don't want to talk to that person. Maybe we avoid them. Maybe there's not an actual cutoff. Maybe there's not even a confrontation, but we just don't come into their space or we don't let them in our space.
right. It's
Right?
uncomfortable. It's awkward.
Yeah.
It's yes, I would agree the emotions are there, but I would also say that there's probably positive emotions there of I'd like to figure out how to fix this. I wish I could get that relationship back. Sometimes that's going on as well, and so people can't navigate the negative or the positive. That's
That's a
where
good
you and I
point.
come in, right? We can do that. We can help people navigate negative and positive. Because I don't think there's just one label on this whole process. We can't call it estrangement. We can't call it disconnection.
Yeah.
It's a process.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
But it is something in the relationship that doesn't feel connected. Or we
Correct.
believe that it should be more connected than what it is. Right?
It's not following that story we had set up over here,
Oh,
right?
yeah. Yeah.
That one we all make up and
Yeah.
what it's supposed to look like. That story isn't quite right. So then there become these disconnected moments or these emotions or these little battles or
Hmm.
personalization. Yeah, that causes the estrangement piece.
Yeah.
Lots of emotion in estrangement, don't you think? I
I
think
do. I
about
think
it, and there's times.
there's a lot of pain,
Yeah,
and uh it's so easy for the person that feels rejected in estrangement, like maybe a sibling has said, "I don't want to talk to you anymore. I don't want to
right.
have you in my life." And the sibling that was told that just feels so much rejection over it that
Right.
that pain can cloud everything. It
Right.
almost can
It
take
can
over our
cloud.
whole lives.
It can take over life. It can take over the family system. It can take over just that relationship. It just bleeds out. Yeah, that's a hard thing to handle when somebody tells you they don't want to be a part of your life anymore. It's
Mm-hmm.
overwhelming. It's disappointing, embarrassing, a lot of regret. What
Mm-hmm.
other emotions can you think of?
Hmm. Well, rejection, shame, lots of
Shame.
shame.
Yeah.
Like
Guilt.
it should be different. What have I done wrong? Why
Right.
have they rejected me? Why am I not good enough? Like
Right. Well, there's always
self-esteem,
this big
self-esteem.
internal dialogue, right? That
Mm-hmm.
we go directly
Mm-hmm.
to. What
Yeah.
did I do to cause that?
Mm-hmm.
Which is not necessarily the case. Relationships are two-way, right? So there's
Mm-hmm.
probably um, issues on both sides, or part of the process happened on both sides, and it
Okay,
is
so hey, I really want to thank you for saying that because I want to interrupt you and just because you're
okay.
really on something that I don't want to go past. It sounds so productive to say, well, what did I do? Because it's kind of a shameful question, but the
Yeah,
same question sooner or later, if we want to create a healthier relationship, has to be asked, but from a very
correct.
different place, right?
Yeah,
Yeah. What do you
yeah,
think about that?
yeah. Well, yeah, I agree that gets asked, but it has to be asked after you've gotten back to your own center and balance. So the first reaction, I think, is usually one of what did I do wrong? And it's a shame-based kind of
Mm,
question, right?
mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
once you can pull back and look at the situation over time or get help with coach, therapy, whatever you need, friends, family, you can pull that back and ask, oh, what part did I play in that? That's a different question. What
Mm.
part have I played in this versus what did I do wrong is a different perspective of the question.
Yeah, that's a great paradigm shift, right? What part did I
Right.
play? But I find that we're really not ready to ask that question for a little while because we're hurting,
Yeah. Because
right?
of the pain, right?
Right. And over the holidays that hurt, that idea of we should be around the table and the laughter and the joy and you can
The
hear there's
story,
decorations and all the wonderful things, right? And
right?
yet we may be totally alone with no
At
one
the table,
at
right?
the table,
At the table,
right?
right?
Or with
So
the
how do
TV
you,
tray in front of the TV and but we're so alone and
oh
it
yeah,
feels
alone in
horrible.
your own house, or you can be alone in the family gathering.
Yes, that's true, right? Yeah.
Both of those can be alone feelings. So how do you set your clients up to succeed in the at the actual family table they don't want to be at? There's a question
well,
for you.
so we're assuming that it's somebody that they don't want to be at the family table. It's like I'm coming
There
out of
might be someone
obligation,
there,
I'm
right?
coming out of duty, I'm coming because my mother will scream at me if I don't, but I have no desire to be here.
Well, and then it could also be someone that says, I don't want to see this person, but I really want to see my brother.
So maybe there's somebody in the family gathering that they don't want to even interact with. But in
Right,
order to see the one person, the other person is going to be there.
right.
So I'm always curious about what is going on inside the person when both of the people are there. I think it's important to know that we can hold two emotions at once, right? We can hold the excitement of seeing the one person and the dread of seeing the other person in our
At the
system at the
same
same
time.
time. Do you think there's
Yeah, and
really an
I think
easy answer? I think it's unique to each
no,
person, each situation. I don't think that we can walk a 1 + 1 = 2 line here.
no, not in any part of estrangement is it A plus B equals C,
Yeah.
right? Because estrangement is so personal. It's an individual family or group or friendship or whatever, but those are personal relationships
Mm-hmm.
and they're different. And if it's my relationship with someone, I have a perspective of it, they have a perspective of it, and it's not the same,
Yeah.
right?
That is so curious though, isn't it? Because we desperately want it to be the same,
Yes,
right?
we do.
The one person who maybe instigated the estrangement desperately wants the other person to see it from their viewpoint.
Right.
And the other person who's feeling like the victim of estrangement desperately wants that person to see it from their viewpoint.
It goes back to what we were saying before, right? First initial reaction is shame based, or what did I do wrong? And now, if we want the perspectives to be the same, we have to shift that to, oh, what piece did I play? What piece did they play? It has to be two people, not
Mm-hmm.
just one, or a family system. I mean, it can actually involve more than two people at a time. Oh, okay.
Right? This is what I hear all the time. Literally, probably at least once a day, I hear this from somebody that I'm coaching. Are you saying that since it's two people, then this is the perfect time to have a conversation with that person? We should be able to talk about it because I want to get the air cleared. I want to get everything cleared. I want to talk it all out, and then it'll all be fine.
Yeah, but if the other person doesn't want to do that, then no,
Yeah.
you can't do that. Force someone to come to the table and communicate. And let's go back to all the emotions. Do you really want your angry parent or your angry sibling communicating with you across the table if you're in a place where you think you can talk?
Yeah.
Because anger is not where you want to be. Anger
Mm-mm.
is not inside deep emotions. Anger is a cover for all of those. So if you're just going to have somebody angry across from you, that's not going to be productive.
Yeah.
Or if you
So
yourself are angry,
it's actually
don't do
helpful
that.
for us to remind ourselves that this does not mean that, oh, I'm going to see my mom or my adult child or my sibling
Right.
at this thing. And so we're going to
We're
sit
going to
down
sit
and have a
down and
talk.
talk about it right then and there, right?
This is not the place, not the time, not the place,
No,
because
I agree.
probably we're both not ready. We have to always remember that
Right.
we both get to be prepared for that conversation.
We both get to, and don't you think it's kind of interesting that both people go though?
Oh, to the same family gathering.
Right.
Maybe they were both guilted into it.
But there is enough of a connection, whether it's a dot or a whole bunch of
Yeah,
connection, for
there's
them to
something.
actually be in the same place, right?
Yeah.
So if you can't have that conversation at this particular dinner or whatever, maybe my client could hold on to what he was in the same place or they were at the same place. So at least we could
Mm.
start there.
Yeah.
Maybe. What do you think?
I think that would be very unique to each individual client. I think for some
Oh,
clients that
all
would
of
really
us would.
resonate. And for some clients, they would feel like, yeah, we were together in the same room and they didn't even talk to me.
That's true too. I agree.
Right. It's
Yeah.
just so fascinating because I know even with you and your clients and me with my clients, like everybody is so unique. There are no two
Right.
families that are cookie cutters of another. Every
No,
situation has its own
no.
nuances. And that's why there's not just open the textbook and just read A, B, C, and we're all done. It just doesn't, it doesn't work that
Right.
way, right?
Right. There is nowhere you can go get information for your situation that is specifically going to work in a formula.
Yeah,
You can
I
get all
agree with
kinds of
that.
information and then you have to filter through what might work for you or come talk to one of us and we'll help you work that through. But there isn't a formula to fix family estrangement.
Mm-hmm.
There can't be.
Yeah.
There's not a formula to fix
Yeah.
any relationship you're in.
Mm-hmm.
If there's a problem, you have to deal with where the problem came from, all the situational stuff, plus your own personalities,
Mm-hmm.
plus the baggage that you guys bring into the relationship. Because we all have that,
Or
do we
have
not?
or have created since then.
So we're created since then, right? But there is baggage. That's what my
Yes.
point is. There is definitely baggage. So
Everybody has baggage.
everybody does.
Yeah.
And that's actually not bad because baggage can be a good thing. You learn lessons from that. The point of baggage in relationships to me, though, is you don't bring that baggage that isn't this person's and put it
Mm-hmm.
on them.
Mm-hmm.
And that's hard to do. That's hard to
Mm-hmm.
do sometimes.
I think that's where our inner work, is so valuable because it's like I get to work through my stuff.
Right.
I get to work through it instead of trying to say, here, no, no, I want you to take it. Please take my stuff. Wouldn't it be nice if we
I
could just say,
agree.
I'm going to take all my stuff and give it to somebody else? And
And
there
give
are
it to
people in the
someone
world that
else.
do that, right?
Yeah. So you bring up a good point. We're going to do a lot of self help practices, right? A lot of things to bring us back to the center. So, what kinds of self help practices would you give your clients to help them come back center so they can become strong enough to actually deal with a relationship?
One thing that I really work with my clients to do is to become aware. Like even when we talked about earlier, being at the dinner and you've got the one person you really want to see and you have the other person that you don't want to interact with. A lot of times what happens is we get there and when we're with the one person, we're excited, we're having a good time. And then the other person just does nothing but walk by. They don't even look at us. But we see that and we get triggered, and then suddenly we're angry and we're carrying all of this emotion because we're not aware. Yeah, we know that we're angry,
Yeah.
but we think it's their fault. It's their fault for
Right.
walking by. Like, so I
Yeah.
really work with my clients to gain that awareness, to be like, oh, this is fascinating how I can have this energy toward this one person, and how I can be triggered by this other person simply not looking at me and not talking. And what is the story I'm telling myself about that?
Right. Well, that's the key point right there. What is the story that you're telling yourself?
Mm-hmm.
That's a good question to take with you whenever
Yeah.
you're having this disconnection. What is the story I'm telling myself? Because that doesn't really mean it's reality. It's our reality, right? But that doesn't necessarily mean it's the other person's or reality in itself. So trying to be aware of that is a good idea.
So, navigating the holidays, it's going to be really great for us to be aware of our stories,
Mm-hmm.
to become aware of what we're feeling, right?
Right.
And to also maybe walk in knowing what we're expecting. If we're expecting this
Right.
Hallmark movie experience, why did we decide that that was the experience that was the real experience of life? Because I always find that people will say, well, no, my adult child's, but my child was so smart. They were so smart. And do you know what? They have grown up and they measure beetle dung for a living. And I'm like, oh, well,
Oh,
okay.
well,
But the parent is so disappointed, right? Because they were so smart. They have all these expectations. It's supposed
they have
to, they should
expectations.
have
Yeah.
gone to Harvard and they should have been blah, blah, blah. And they should have,
Right.
but the kid is perfectly content measuring beetle dung. And that may actually, save the whole world. We don't know.
Right. Well,
But the
then
parent
that's
has this story, and they have this fantasy of
right.
the way the relationship's supposed to be and the way that person is supposed to be. And I
Right. So
think that
that's
gets in the way of
self
connection.
awareness thing, right? That's
Yeah.
self awareness because what is wrong with measuring beetle dung if you're happy doing that?
Well, being aware that you're judging. We have a lot of pain during the holidays because these stories are going on in the back of our heads.
Of course. And that brings up another point. We have to be aware of what we can and cannot control.
Mm.
So the
Tell me
person
more
that
about
just
that.
walked by in your story, in your story, when the
Mm-hmm,
person just
mm-hmm.
walked by and you get triggered by that, you can control your reaction to the person walking by, but you cannot control that the person just walked by.
Mm, mm-hmm.
So I think it's really important to start to look at what you can and cannot have an effect on. Now, you could leap out of your chair and become an angry jerk, and then that would have some effect on the person that just walked by. But I don't know that that would be the effect you're looking for, right? So I don't mean that. You can't affect their behavior. If they're not ready to talk or they don't want to acknowledge you and they walk on by, the thing you can control is your reaction to that, not their behavior.
Yeah.
And if you, like in your example, you had them talking to someone else, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they're having a good interaction. Why would you give that up to pay attention to a trigger that brings you pain and anguish?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So what do you suggest for clients who are experiencing the holidays all alone? They are
Being
alone. Like,
physically all
yeah,
alone.
physically they are alone. They are cut off for whatever reason.
Yeah. Well, like you and I've talked about before, families are all about connection. So everybody wants a connection of some kind. And usually we look at our biological families for those connections.
Mm-hmm.
If you don't have that, then you're still longing for that connection. We need to find other ways to bring that. So that can be friends, that can be other family, that can be volunteer work down the street. What you're looking for is a human to human connection that brings some of that family. Go inside and think about what kind of connection you're missing, you're wanting, and go try to find that instead of sitting home alone.
Maybe for whatever reason, we feel too vulnerable to try to reach out and connect with humans, at least on a very deep
Sure.
level. And a lot of people will get pets. They will have pets that they care for, but especially over the holidays, fostering a
Fostering
dog or a
pets, good
cat.
idea.
People
Yeah,
are so wanting their puppies or their kitties or whatever to be loved and cared for. And
right.
we may be hurting and wanting to care for somebody or
Or
some
even caring for someone's pet that's going out of town can
right.
bring you some connection that you want, or volunteering at the Humane Society. Oh, I like that idea. Good
Mm-hmm.
idea.
Yeah.
Yeah, right. I want my clients to be careful not to just completely isolate, though. That's
Mm-hmm.
hard.
Mm-hmm.
And find a human connection somewhere too, if they can. But I
Yeah.
like the idea of the animals first. It's a
Yeah,
good
but
first.
even I think even when we are taking care of animals, usually there's going to be a human in there somewhere that connects
Yeah,
us with the animal,
true.
right? Unless you
You would
open your
hope.
door and the kitty is just sitting there, and you're like, oh,
Which, oh yeah, well, I have had that experience with a cat, but you're right. I showed up on my screen door one year. But anyway, I agree. It'll lead you maybe to a connection, but you could do that through the animal, right?
mm-hmm,
Yeah. But my advice would be to not sit in your stories,
mm-hmm.
because the brain makes stories. You have this point and you have this point, and your brain will make up everything in between. Right? Or you just have this point and your brain will still make up everything, and then it will have its own ending.
That's exactly right. Yes, I have family members come to me often saying, "Well, no, they think da 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 da," and I said, "Did they tell you that?"
How do you know
And they'll
then?
say, "Yeah, how do you know? I mean, did they tell you that?" Well, no. Well, did they write you a letter? Well, no. Well, I mean, how do you know? And they'll say, "Well, I just know.
I just
I
know.
just know." And I go,
Do
"Actually,
you?
you don't know." Even though you may have plenty of experience to back it up, where you're like, "Well, in the past," but in this instance, we don't know. So the person
We don't.
walking behind us at the family gathering or in front of us that doesn't speak and looks up, maybe they got to go to the bathroom really bad, and they are beeline to
Maybe
the
it has
toilet.
nothing to do with you, right?
Nothing to do with you, right? We don't
Maybe
know.
they're super mad at you and they just can't stand it. Maybe they're embarrassed by the behavior that had happened before and they don't know how to approach you. I mean,
There's
you
lots
don't
of
know.
lots of
You just don't know.
reasons, right?
Yeah, lots of reasons. Lots of reasons. And again, we're making up our own stories
Mm-hmm.
that aren't always true.
There's some freedom in recognizing that, oh, I really don't know that that's true. Like letting our
Yeah.
system hear that, because when we repeat it over and over and over, our brain does not know the difference between a story that we tell it in reality, right? It just thinks it's all true because we're telling it. We actually want to say out loud, hey, I don't even know that that's true. I know I think it's true, but I have no proof to,
And that's
to back
actually
that
a
up.
good thing to do. Say it actually out loud.
Yeah.
I don't know that that's true. I'm
Yeah.
not
I don't
sure
know
that,
that that's true.
right. Because that actually gives you input through your system. So you
Mm-hmm.
tell yourself, yeah, I don't know if that's true.
Yeah. I don't know that that's true. Yeah. And it's such a great deal because in estrangement, it can get built bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger sometimes than what it really is.
Problems get bigger and bigger the more time you spend on them in your head.
Mm-hmm. Which is why it's so important that people like you and me exist, right?
Correct.
Because
We
this
help
is
them get
this
out of
is
their
what we
head.
do to help you get out of
Yeah,
your head, to
right.
see the blind spots that you may not be seeing, to help you to gain the awareness that you need so that you can show
Right.
up in a way that you are happy with, no
Right.
matter whether the person walks by and doesn't talk to you or not.
Or not. So you're coming back to your own self, because frankly, that's the only thing you can control again is yourself. And
Mm-hmm.
so you want to be in a good place.
Yeah.
I think, I mean, maybe people want to be angry and miserable, but that has not been my experience, that they come to work with me saying, hey, help me be angry and miserable. That's never been what I've come across. In 30 years of practice, I don't
It's
think I've
never
ever had
happened,
anybody
huh?
say that. Never happened. Nope. No,
Yeah.
people are looking for a way to help their stories calm down and then figure out what's real.
Yeah.
And I think we were talking earlier about coming back to ourselves. Do you think
Mm-hmm.
that's the first place we go?
When we want to heal.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I
Mm-hmm.
think it's always the self is always the first place.
I do too. I do too. And I think it's also hard to do because it's much easier to look outside and blame and shame and try to figure out if it's somebody
Mm-hmm.
else's fault. So, how do we help our clients come back to being able to ask that question again? What part did I have?
Mm.
What part did I
You know
have?
what? I work with my clients a lot on helping them to make space for the different versions of themselves at different times in their life
Yes.
so that they can really begin to understand why I did what I did. Because the truth is in my experience, there isn't anybody, whatever decision we make, it does seem reasonable in our head. It may not,
At
it
the
may be a
moment, right.
horrible
Yeah.
decision. It
Yeah.
may be the worst decision in the world. But at that time, that person, that it seemed like a great idea.
Seemed like a great
Or
idea.
the only option or whatever, right? And I think that when we can really develop some self-compassion, it's not a way of sweeping it under the rug or saying what I did was right, but it's just a way of being like, oh, I can see how that made sense. And I might not ever make that same decision again, but I can at least understand why I made it to begin with.
Why I made it then, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because you're looking back and seeing where you were in the world and how you were living in the world and what knowledge you had. There's growth. People grow.
Yeah.
Right. And I do think, just popped in my head too. I think we do need to acknowledge that there is a place for estrangement. That
yes. Yes.
Right. There are times when that happens.
Yeah, because some relationships are healthiest when there is space. We do not need to be close to every single human, right?
And if there is really abuse in the family, their distance is usually justified.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And
so we do need to acknowledge that. And necessary for healing, absolutely. So I know clients will come and talk about that too. When is it time to do it? And it's just, again, based on personal experience and story. So, yeah, you have to know your story and know whether or not you want to continue down that path of estrangement, whether you want to reconcile. You and I can help them do that.
We have to be ready until we get some of our own garbage kind of worked through a little bit.
Yeah.
We're not ready to make that decision. That decision will come at the right time.
At the right time. So when is it time to take distance?
We may be estranged today and we may not be estranged next month or 5 years or 10 years from now. And I know that sounds incredible. It's like, how would that be? Well, things change. People change. People evolve.
People change.
Life changes.
I can use the word estrangement to talk about myself. If I'm estranged from my true self, I can't figure things out, right? So estrangement just means I am not connected the way that I want to be or the way that I feel like I ought to be. I want people to quit shoulding and oughting all over themselves, right? You don't should all over yourselves. But our society does that, right? We should do this, we should do that, we ought to do this. And that's just not really true. But that's a form of your own personal estrangement. If you're stuck in this, it should be this way. This should have happened, blah, blah, blah. That's where you come back to yourself and figure out how to heal and how to be okay and how to look at all the pieces you were just talking about. Why did I make the decisions I did? Why do I think they made the decisions they did? And try to take the anger out of it and get down to the emotions.
Yeah, that's a beautiful thing. Another thing that comes up pretty often at this time of year is, Bonnie, I've been invited to this, but I don't want to go because they're going to ask me about my family member.
I don't want to have to answer that.
Right? Lots of stress about that. Lots of anxiety.
And the point being, we've been working on this with ourselves on a very deep emotional level. Because these are personal relationships. So as much as I tell you, quit personalizing that, that's a joke because it's personal. It's a personal relationship. So you have these emotions. But when you're in these social situations, I don't think you have to be so deep unless you want to, right? So if somebody asks you how your family is, you can say, I haven't spoken to them lately. Or you can say, last time I spoke to them, they were fine. Or I don't know. Or you could go into a deep soliloquy of the entire situation if you want to, but I'm just saying you don't have to.
That makes everybody comfortable.
And that makes everyone comfortable. So if your goal is to have a lot of negative feelings around the holidays, go there.
A holiday to be remembered, Karen.
Yeah, right. Actually, there are a lot of those in people's lives, holidays to remember.
Yes.
Yeah. being aware that when people ask you questions like, how's your family or how are you, they are not usually wanting a long, deep answer. They want you to say everything's fine. You don't have to say that, but you can say, well, last time I talked to them, it was good, or we're not really speaking right now. And if
Yeah.
somebody says, why not? You can say, well, that's a long story and I prefer not to bring that up.
Yeah.
You don't owe anybody a long, deep conversation about disconnection in your family.
And sometimes, maybe you don't even feel comfortable enough to say that. Sometimes you
Okay.
can just deflect back to the person.
Yes, you
So if they
can.
ask you about your adult child, oh my gosh, how is she doing? Is she out of school or does she have that grandbaby or blah, 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 blah. And you're thinking, I haven't seen her. I never got to see the grandbaby. We are not talking. It's just amazing how people like to talk about themselves.
Oh,
So
that's true.
literally in a heartbeat, you can go, oh, Harry, did he pass medical school? Oh my gosh.
Yes, you.
And suddenly,
I love that.
and
Yeah,
suddenly
suddenly
the
it's back on
conversation
them.
is gone and they won't even
That's right.
notice that you never answered until later.
Right.
Right.
Right. But that's also an example of not having to give a big, deep answer.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just send it right back to where it was.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. I think
Like
that's
really
great.
giving ourselves permission to, if I want to answer, I'll answer. And if I don't, but I think it's really great to practice. Like practice some answers. Don't wait till you get there and go,
No, no.
like, because that's exactly what will probably
You can just
happen.
practice with your pillow over there, right?
Yeah.
You just set it
Yeah.
up and answer the questions.
And the people that
That's,
you think are most likely to come ask you something, you
yeah.
work out what it is that you want to say. And if you don't know, you come talk to me and Karen, and we will help you through that,
We
right?
will help you figure that
But
out.
guess what? Here's what's really fascinating is that one of two things happen. When you practice with your pillow, it the whole conversation may go exactly as it did with your pillow,
Uh-huh.
or it will
Uh-huh.
never
Or it may
happen because
not.
you're so prepared.
Right.
Your system is
Right.
so prepared that they never even you never get asked.
Yeah, but what you're really doing is talking through those situations and those stories that you already have in your head. So if
Mm-hmm.
you can talk through the stories, you can have answers that are much more eloquent. They flow off your tongue and they're not deep emotional triggers for you. Because
Yeah.
these are hard situations to walk into.
Yeah. And I'm just gonna make another suggestion that just popped in my head. I think it's really important that whether it's at a family function or a community event or whatever it is, that even though we may feel ourselves wanting to have a big sound out about this family member, like
Uh-huh.
we just want to like I would no, please
I would
don't.
not do that.
Please don't,
No.
because it does not seem to matter where it is. There really is not a safe place for you. Well, yeah, with me and Karen, of course. But like other people talk. Did
They
you
do.
hear? Did you hear? Oh my gosh, this happened and this happened and this happened and this. And sooner
Right.
or later, this person knows this person who knows this person. And wouldn't you know, the strangest thing in the world, they know your family member.
Right.
And that gets back.
And
And
also,
so,
if you feel like you need to do that, right, just have it out about this person, then you're
yeah.
not really anywhere in yourself but in those negative emotions.
Yeah. Good point.
And we don't want to do that. You don't want to just spew out negative emotions because those come back to bite you, like you're talking
Mm-hmm.
about, right?
Mm-hmm.
It'll go down the line, and the telephone of people talking to people really changes the stories too. So,
Yeah.
no, I wouldn't do that. Good
But
suggestion. I'm
sometimes we
not.
do feel tempted, right? Because you do have that one family member, maybe, or friend that you feel like you could really confide it all in. And I'm not
Mhm.
telling you not to, but I am
Right.
saying really think that
Be
through.
careful.
Be
Just be careful.
very thoughtful about that, right?
Well, I would be very thoughtful about my need to have that discussion right then
Mm,
and there at a family function.
like to say it. Yeah.
Hmm.
And
Because really, most family functions, again, are pretty surface level. Everybody is there. They're not talking on a deep level of each and every heartbreak that's going on in the family or things like that. So it's just better to keep it surface level.
Well, except there's that one aunt,
There.
So I understand you broke up with blah blah. Did he throw you away like the other 14 guys did? You're like, oh, thank you. Thank you for that. Except for her.
Yeah, well, we've practiced on that aunt. She was the pillow over there for a while. Because we
Exactly.
know that. That's definitely coming. But I think this is talking about, making sure we're setting rails or boundaries for ourselves. So can you think of
Mhm.
any others that people might need to set in these particular situations?
Well, it's just so individual. It's
Agreed.
individual. But I think that we do have to give ourselves permission. Remember, if you're struggling with this is your life. If we are obsessed with thinking about this failed relationship and it's always in our head, it's actually keeping us from living our life. Our
Right.
life is ticking by, and we don't even realize it because we're so busy
Right.
thinking about this adult child or this sibling or this parent. And
Mm-hmm.
and we're actually not living. Like we look up and it's like, oh, it's been 4 years. So you've spent 4 years
Wow.
doing
Yeah.
this and not 4 years learning how to be happy.
Right. Yourself permission. And if you don't know how to do that, because this is hard, this is really
Yeah.
hard.
Yeah.
And if it's hard for you, then you should reach out to someone like Bonnie or myself, right? And let us
Yeah.
help you do that. Because when you have eyes on the outside looking in, that's better. Because
Mm-hmm.
inside is very, very personal, as it should be, as it
Mm-hmm.
should be. And it's hard.
Sometimes
Very hard.
clients come to me feeling guilty that they haven't been able to figure it out on their own.
Right.
And like,
Me,
I think that we could I'm just going to give everybody permission to just drop that story. Who wrote the rule that said you were supposed to figure it out on your own? That's what I want to know.
we're supposed to get it all right,
That's
right? We're
right.
supposed to be able to figure it all out. Yeah.
Oh, like, but we
And
have to be
it's not true.
self-reliant and independent and be all
Uh-huh.
the things.
And right. And be able to talk to anyone and work anything out. And sometimes that's just not the case.
Yeah.
And that's okay. And remember that the other person's story is one you don't know.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't know exactly why it's going on. So work on you. Let's work on you.
Yeah. That's
And
great.
the holidays can be really fun. Right? Let's find one area that you can at least connect in, whether that's with an animal or a friend or a family member or a neighbor. Don't turn down those neighbor, come on over for Thanksgiving. Just make yourself do it so you can have some family connection, some type of personal connection. Yeah, even though it's hard.
That is great information. Great advice, Karen.
Oh, thank you. No.
I think we've kind of covered most of the
you.
pain of the holidays. Do you? Is there anything else? If
Yeah, I
anybody's
think so.
listening to this and you have a question of something that you wish that we had directly addressed, email us, let us know. We'd be happy to do another little chat together and talk it out,
Sure.
right?
Yeah, we can do that. Email your questions. You can put them on in the comments on Instagram too. We'll find them there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Follow us. We have lots of tips and tricks all over the place, and hopefully it's helpful. So,
Yeah.
yeah. And just know
Estrangement
you're
is
not
tough.
alone. Not
Estrangement is
alone.
tough. Yeah.
Yes, very tough. Very tough. And that's okay. Please let it be tough. It's okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you don't have to solve it right away.
It is hard. I'm trying to say that we can actually put our other relationships in jeopardy by not getting the help we need.
Yes,
So we
yes,
have
we
that
can.
friend that we've been really good friends with who knows this family member and da 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 da. And so we tend to tell them all the things and we feel better maybe for a little bit, but it's putting a lot of burden on that relationship.
Right.
And our friend, although they love us and they're probably going to rally with anything that we say and agree everything that we
Right.
say, it can, sometimes we actually lose friendships and lose other relationships because we are
Right.
trying to get those relationships to do what a coach does.
Yeah. Well, that's what coaches and therapists do. You need to
Yeah.
reach out and let someone else help so you can salvage those relationships and enjoy them. Right?
Mm,
Because that really special friendship that you have, you don't want it to become always talking about the negative. You don't want
hmm.
to do that.
Yeah. because that's
That
hard.
doesn't heal your heart. It's just hard. It's
Mm-hmm.
hard.
Mm-hmm.
But it's okay. Things are hard, and we can help you with techniques and listen and help you with your stories.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thanks, Karen.
Yes.
Thank you for taking the time.
Thank you.
It's been
Oh, yeah,
a
you
great
too. Thanks.
fun.
It is fun. Let's do it again.
Okay.
All
I'll
right.
see you next time.
Thanks.
All righty.
Okay. Bye bye.
Bye-bye.